Right, welcome back, guys. So we're going to pick off right where we left off. So what we have implemented is we can get our users' details from the screen into our controllers, and we want to go ahead and either create an account or um, register them. So there's a convention we use, as I was saying, is we don't like to put too much logic in our controllers. So we like our controllers to have as little code as possible. So we use classes called service classes. The only reason we use the reason we use service classes is not only because we don't want too much code in our controllers. It's also so we can group related code together in the same place. That way we can use it for multiple locations. There are a few other examples which you would learn as you continue being a C# developer. But for now, we're going to go ahead and create a new folder in our web project. I'm going to go ahead and create a new folder, and I'll call this folder services. And then I'm going to come into services and create a new file. This new C# class, and I'll call it account service. Account services. Let's call this account service. I'll create a new folder and I'll call it interfaces. I'll just call this folder. No, I don't want this folder to be in the service. Take note of where you create the folder. I want the folder to be on the root. So I'll create this folder and I'll call it interfaces. And I'll name this one, I'll create a new file in interfaces, or I'll create a new C# class here, and I'll call this iAccount service. And iAccount service is a special type of file we call an interface in C#, and we're going to learn why we use it and how it's used as we proceed. But for now, create an interface. Notice that I changed the name. So the name is iAccountService.cs, the file, and then I started with it with a public interface iAccount service, and all interfaces start with the letter I. Although it's not a requirement, but it's a convention, and conventions are usually good to follow. So we have an interface class called iAccount service and a service class called account service. And in this class, we're going to add a couple of methods. So the first would be a public. So let's say public application user. So we're saying this is going to return an application user. Public application user, create user. Now that I'm thinking of it, okay, yeah, so public application user, create user. I'm going to name this create user. It's going to take in, so the property parameter is going to take in is the login model. It's going to take in the login model. So using estateapp.web.models. Model, okay, that's great. And I'm not sure why I can't. Okay, yeah. So what this method is going to do is basically create a new user for us. I'm going to throw new, not implemented exception for now. Just add using system. So we have a create user property here. I'm actually going to make it asynchronous, and we're going to return a task of application user because I know that we're going to have to do some async stuff here, and we have to add the system.threading namespace. So using system.threading. And so we have a method to create our user. How do we use it? And because we're using async here, I'm going to add the keyword async. It's not a requirement, but anytime you make a method async, you add the async keyword to the name of the class. It's just async. It's just a convention. Now I'm going to take all of this and I'm going to put it in my interface class. I'm just going to put this here and have this here. I'll bring in my using statement. Great. Now I need to relate the iAccount service and the account service, and the way to do that is I'm going to say the account service implements iAccount service. So remember to add this part saying the account service implements, and what this means is it's saying, hey, the account service, I am promising to implement any methods that you specify in the accounts iAccount service. To illustrate, I'm going to take this out and save it. So what my interface is saying is that, hey, so interfaces are usually implemented by classes, and then what my interface is saying that, hey, any class that wants to implement me must have this method, must have a method that takes in a login model and that gives back an application user and that is named create user async. So it's like a promise. I'm saying any class that implements iAccount service should have this method. And now I'm saying, hey, now the account service class is saying, hey, I am going to implement iAccount service. And then iAccount service is saying, okay, you're saying you're going to implement me, but you don't implement one of my members. So it's saying iAccount service does not implement interface member, and that's an error. So I'm simply going to put back the code I took out, and you see that my error goes away, because by implementing iAccount service, I am committing to implementing all of the properties in it, and that is what this code does here. So I'm implementing this. I now need to tell my program that, hey, whenever I ask you to give me an iAccount service, what I really want is an account service. I have an error in the name here. I want this to be iAccount service. So I'm simply going to put an S in both of it, and I'll rename the file too. Okay, awesome. And now I need to tell ASP.NET Core that, hey, whenever I request one iAccount service, give me an account service. And the way to do that is to come in here, and I'm just going to say services dot add transients. I give it the name of the interface first, iAccounts service, bring in the user statement, and then I tell it, hey, relate it with account service. Account service. This is C. Okay, I have a mistake in my spelling here. Okay, so account service. And with this line of code, I've told my application that, hey, wherever you see a request for my account service, replace it with an account service. And this would make a lot of sense for later. It would help us when we want to actually start testing. So using this interface pattern makes testing your application really easy. So I have this done here. I can now come in here. Now, how do I use this? To use this, I'm going to come to my account controller, and in my create user model, let's see, is that create user or login? So this is create user, so I actually want the register model, sorry, not the login model when I want to create a user. Now I'm going to have to fix my account service because I'm going to have an error. It's saying, hey, this does not implement it, and the reason is that the one in the interface takes in a registration model, not a login model. And everything is fine again. Now I'll come to my controller, and then so I'm going to leave the model state if model state is valid. So this exclamation mark in front of it kind of flips the switch. So what I'm saying here is if the model state is not valid, return view. And if the model state is valid, it's not going to execute that. I can just come down here then and just proceed with my work. I'm going to add a try catch statement. If you don't understand what this does, a lot of people already know exception handling, so please signify if you don't know what I'm doing with the try catch here, so we can do a video on exception handling. So if anything, so this part of the code says if something wrong happens in the application, just return a bad. So if something happens, I'm just going to add an error to the model state. So I'll say model state dot add model error, and I need to give it an error. I'm not going to put in any key, no, I'm going to put in an exception. So exception E, and then model metadata. I'm just going to say null. Awesome. I'll just confirm this is how this was done in the latest ASP.NET Core. So so let's see. Okay, so instead of using this, I'm just going to say e.message. So I want the error that happened to be returned to the user. So if something happened, I just return the error message to the user here. Now we're actually going to try to use this I account service that we created. The way we do that is we're going to do something called dependency injection. And dependency injection is just a way for you to get in classes or objects or services that you need in a class into that class. And the reason we can do this is because of this registration that we did here in our startup.cs. So this line of code we added here is going to let us do dependency injection here. And the way to do that is I'm going to create a constructor for this class. So I'll just say public accounts controller. And there I have a constructor. The way to create a constructor is create a method that doesn't return anything and doesn't return anything that matches the name of the class. So I have account controller here, This is a special type of method called the constructor. The constructor is a method that is run when you create a new project. So when you say var class equals new class, the constructor is run automatically. And what I want to happen with this constructor is I want to inject an I account service instance. So I say I account service. I'm going to create a private variable to save it into here. I'll say private read only I account service underscore account service. Awesome. I need to bring in the namespace, and then I'm just going to bring this down. I'm just going to come here and save it off, and I'll just say account service equals account service, and that's great. Now what I need to do is I'll come into my register part here, and I'll just say underscore account service dot create user async, and I just need to pass in the model. But I need to wait this. I'll wait this because, as you remember, this is async. This is an asynchronous method. I need to await this, and to await it, I need to make this awaitable too. So I'll say I'm returning a task of action result here, and this error should go away. Okay, I need to bring in the using system.trading.tasks. So okay, so I'm not returning a value. Okay, so after creating a new account, what do we want to do? We want to log them in. We probably want to log them in. The number of things you can do when after creating your account, you can simply take them to the login page, or you can just log them in automatically. I think what we want to do is we want to sign them in automatically. So I'm going to take this. So the SignIn Manager basically signs them in. Okay, so I realize what's missing here. We're missing the async keyword, and that works. So if you remember, so this is the new user we're creating. If you come into our account service, you realize that we're returning an account user. So if everything here goes well without an issue, then we should get our user a user when that code is done running, and we can use the user here. Now, what is the SignIn Manager? Once again, we're going to inject the SignIn Manager into this application here. So to do that, I'm going to put a comma here, and I'll just say SignIn Manager of application user, if I remember correctly, and I'll call this SignIn Manager. Once again, we need to bring in the using statement using Microsoft Identity, and then we need to bring in the one for the application user too. We need to create a private SignIn Manager field, private read only SignIn Manager, and just go SignIn Manager, and then we need to save it off. So if you forget to do this, you're going to have errors. SignIn Manager of application user. Let's see. If you forget to do this part where you save it into the field, you're going to be getting errors. So I just do this, and now I have my SignIn Manager. And what then happens is, after we need to return view here. Yeah, so after creating a new user, I sign them in, and then I can then send them to whatever page I want. Let's see, what page should we send them to? We should send them to the home page after creating a new account. So I'll say return local direct. So let's redirect them to our home page. So if we say /, they should take them to our application root. Okay, this should work, but if you remember, we've not implemented our create user async method. We just put some dummy code there. We have to go in now. I'll say go to implementation, and we need to implement it. Before that, we need to do some dependency injection too. So once again, create a constructor in this class. We're going to create a constructor called account service. So public account service, and while we're creating the constructor, because we need to inject in the user manager. So the user manager is a special class that helps us manage users, creating new user, and all of that. I'm going to start from adding the field private read only user manager of application user underscore user manager. So I have this, and then now I can inject the user manager. So I can say user manager of application user. Once again, I just need to confirm that I'm recording. Okay, user manager of application user. Not sure why the error here. Okay, yeah, user manager. So I'll just inject this in here. and then I can save it off. I can say underscore user manager equals user manager coming in from the constructor. Awesome. So I have a user model coming in. First thing I want to do is I'll check that what is coming in is not null. If model is null, I'm going to throw an exception. I'm simply going to say throw new argument null exception. So I'm saying here something is wrong, and then I'm going to say message. So the message I want to be displayed on the screen is that invalid details provided. Now this should be impossible to happen. It shouldn't be possible for the user to, I'm going to change this equal to a colon. It should be impossible for a user to send a null object all the way in just depth into our application, but it's possible if they do some JavaScript tricks and kind of find ways to pass our validation, all the validations we're doing. I'm going to put null here for the inner exception. So invalid details provided, and that's all I'm going to do here. I can take out this not implemented exception and just start to continue building the application now. First thing I want to do is to create a new application user. So I'll say val user equals new application user, and let's see. So currently, let's say the properties our application user has. Our application user currently has only the default properties that come from the identity user. So things like the username. So I'll just set the username of this user to the same as the email. I'll set the email to the email. Well, how about the name? What do I set the name to? Now, by default, ASP.NET Core does not provide a way for us to set the name. But if we have other extra properties that we need to accept for our user, we can just come into our application user class and add those properties. So, for example, I can come and say public string full name get set. And that's it. Suddenly I can come in and I can say full name equals model dot full name, and that's it. If I need to take the user's BVN or their social security number, all of that, I can just add all of that here, and then it's suddenly available to me to save more details about my user. So I'm going to create a new application user, and then I'll use that user to create to persist any user on the system. And the way to do that is I'm going to say val results equals await underscore user manager dot create async. So create async creates a new user, create async, and I'm going to pass in the user I created, user, and I'm going to pass in the password I want that user to have, and that password should be model.password. So the value in the password field. So now a number of things can happen when I try to create a user with when I try to create a user, it can either succeed or fail. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say if result that succeeded, I'm going to negate it. So this code here should execute if it fails. So if result is succeeded, but I'm negating it with the exclamation mark. So if something happens, an exception is going to be thrown. So I'm just going to throw an exception here and says, hey, this user wasn't created successfully. Throw new exception, and we need to decide what kind of exception we want to throw here. I think an invalid operation exception is the kind of exception we should throw here. And I'll just say the message is result dot errors dot So there can be a number of reasons why this does not work. I'm going to write a very quick helper method that we can use to just get all of the errors into as one straight string. So I'm just going to say this follow my lead private string add errors, and this is going to take in an identity results, results, and then I'm just going to say for each val error results.errors. I'm going to create something called a string builder, which helps me add different strings together. It's a very neat way of adding strings together in C#. It's usually very fast. So I'll say string builder sb equals new string builder, and I'll just say using system.text, and then I can come in here and say sb dot append, and I can just pass the string I want to pass in, which is going to be error dot description. I'm going to add a space so they're not all packed together, and then I can just say return sb to string. So after putting all of those errors into one long string, I can return it, and then here I can say messages add errors result. So all I'm saying is, hey, okay, I realized that there were some errors. Take that result and give it to add errors, get me a string, and that should be the message, the exception message. And I'm going to, once again, my inner exception is going to be null as usual. So this is if the result, if it failed. Or if it didn't fail, I can just return the user. So if everything went as expected, we've created the user, I can just straight up return the user. And let's go back to account controller and see if we're good. Awesome. So right now, let's see. Okay, I think we're good to go. Sign async, everything looks good to go. I'm going to okay, let's test this. Let's actually debug through this before we commit. So I'm going to go to debug and I'm going to say run. Okay, there's an issue. Okay, invalid column name, full name. Okay, so it's saying, hey, I'm trying to create a new user, but this I can't find this full name anywhere, and I'll show you why we're having this issue. So and you will probably have the same issue. So what we did is we added a new property full name, but let's go to our database and look at something in our database. I'm going to open SQL Server Management Studio. And I just want to show us why we had that error. Come on, why are you being so slow? And is it? I'm not sure why it's taking so long today. Okay, great, it's open. No, I don't want to log into the database on the cloud. I want the one on my system. So I come into databases, and this is the database for my estate app. I'm going to come to the tables, and this is the tables that holds my users. ESP users. And as you can see, among the fields here, I don't have a user, I don't have a full name. So that means I have nowhere to save the full name, and that is the error. So it's saying here, I can see that you're trying to save a full name from your user, but there's no full name column in the database. And why that happens is each time you add a new property to your application user or to any model, you need to run a new migration. So always remember that each time you add a new property to your model, you need to run a new migration. And that's what we have to do now. We have to go in and create a new migration. Give me a second. Okay, so as usual, to add a migration, we need to be in the API project, not the data project. So I'm going to go to cd src slash estate app.web. So I want to go to the web folder, and then I can go ahead and add migration.net ef migrations add, and what should I call my migration? I'll just call it full name migration. And once again, I need to tell it which of the context I am using, because I have multiple contexts in this application. Just to confirm, I'm going to go in and check the name of my context. That should be my data project. So in my data project, I have application DB context and authentication DB context. And this should be in the authentication DB context, because this is the context that has the application user. That's the context that has everything that has to do with user management. So authentication DB context. So I have that, and then I have to tell it the migration project as usual. And if you remember correctly from the last time, we have to go back one folder, dot slash estate app dot data. Okay, yes. So this is the code. This is the command to run on migration.net ef migrations add, the name of the migration, the DB context, and the migration project. I'm going to hit enter. Okay, so let's go in and see if we have a new migration. So if we come into migrations now, I have this migration here, which is full name migration. If I come in here, I see it says migration builder.add column. So it's actually going to add a new column to our database. I'm going to come here, and now we want to update the database with this migration. So the command is .NET ef database updates. .NET ef database updates. The context, once again, is authentication DB context, and the project, once again, is the dot slash estate app the data. Okay, so I made a mistake here. I have this is supposed to just be in front of project, so I'll just take that off. Alright, so it has updated my database, and if I should come in here and just refresh, close this off. Let's select top 1000 rows, and you see now I have a full name column, though this user, so our default user is not going to have a full name because, well, we created this user before we added this column, so full name is currently null. And but now when we try to run our application, we shouldn't have that issue again because we now have the full name column in our database. I'm just going to collapse this back, and now let's debug our application and test what we were going to test before. Okay, so once again I'll go to /account/register, and name I'll say Vincent. For email address I'll use my email. Password I'll say dev@12345, dev@12345, and then I'll say register, and it has hit my controller, my breakpoint. And let's come down. It says if model state, so model state is not valid, so it didn't return. And now I'm going to step in here to see what's going to happen. Now I'm in the create user async method. You see how I'm stepping through. Now it's saying if model is null, throw an exception, but model is not null, so it won't throw an exception. And then I'm going to come in here, and it says value user equals new application user. I'll step through this, and then this is the result that is supposed to create the user. I'll click through this, and our result is back. I'm going to come in here and see our succeeded is true. So if result is succeeded, it means we're not going to throw an exception here. Our user was successfully created. Now I said return user, and I'm using the SignIn Manager to sign this user in, and I'm returning local redirect. If I hit enter, let's come back to the browser, and you see that it created this user, and I have this update password thing here because this user has been created and we've redirected the user to the home page. Now ideally what we should see is we don't want this login and submit here anymore. We want a log out button, which is going to be the next thing we're going to do. Oh, just after we create the login bit. So when the user is logged in, we don't want a login button here anymore. What we want is a log out button. But if we come to our database now and just execute this again, we see we now have two users. One is vwarner@gmail.com, and indeed I have a full name of Vincent Warner. So that's user creation. We're able to create a new user now. So next up is login. So let's add the functionality for login to our application. I'm going to stop the app now, and once again let's add the functionality for our login to our service class and just use it for the controller. So once again I'm going to come in here, I'll say public async task of application user login async async, and this time I'm going to take the login model, named model. Okay, great. Now once again, if the model is null, I want to throw an exception. Login, and then the next thing to do is to try to log in the user, and then for that I'm going to use the first I'll use the user manager to confirm that the password is correct, and I'm going to say the user or the result equals wait underscore user manager dot let's see I think we should confirm password. Yeah. Okay, so there really is no need for us to use a service class here because the amount of code we would have to put in our controller anyways isn't that much. Well, it was a good illustration on how to use services. So we're simply going to take this um, login async from here and simply implement our login directly in our controller. So I'll come to the controller now and I'll just implement this right in the controller. To do that, okay, we already have the SignIn Manager injected here. So I'll come here and say var results equals underscore SignIn Manager dot SignIn async. Okay, SignIn async get to okay, let's change this to let's password SignIn async, and then we're going to pass in the person's username, which in this case is the email. So model.email, and we need to pass in the password. Model.password. So it's persistent, false. Log out on failure. So should we log this user out if the detail is incorrect? No, we don't want to. False too. And we need to await this. To await it, we need to change it to an async task of I action result, and we can then just return. We're going to return them to the home page if they successfully log in. So we're going to return local redirect. Oh, hold on. This is not the best way to solve this, but for now, I'm simply going to copy this add errors method. Or you know what's happening now? I need this. I'm going to go ahead and do this, and then I'll show you a better way to do it. So because I need this add errors code once again, I'm going to copy it and I'm going to put it here too. So now I have it in two places because I need it from two places. I need to use it in this controller too. And I need it because I need to add my error checking code here. Try catch exception E. Okay, so I can then take this and put it here. And now if something goes wrong as usual, I'm going to add model error and return view. Now if I need to check if my sign in worked or not, so I'm going to say if results that succeeded. So if result does not succeed, I'm going to put an exclamation mark here. If result does not succeed, what do I want to do? I want to say error message equals add errors, I pass in results, and now I can see model states that add model error, and then I say error messages. Awesome. And then I can just return the view. So I return the same view the user tried to log in with whatever error happened that made them not be able to log in. But then if it did succeed, so if login did succeed, then I don't need all of that. I can just redirect them to the user page. I can say return local redirect. Once again, I'm going to redirect them to the home page of our application. Okay, so I'm going to change this to a sign-in result. Microsoft out. ASP.NET Core.identity. That's sign-in result. Microsoft ASP.NET Core identity. Okay, so for this one, we have to fully qualify it. I think I can probably just fully qualify it from here. And now result that okay, so this doesn't exactly have error messages. There's no error message if the sign in fails, so I'm simply going to take this off. Unfortunately, I can't illustrate what I wanted to illustrate with this particular example, but we'll get another chance. So we don't have to do this here. We just need to add an error. So we just have to add a manual error saying login failed, please check your details. So let's just return a message that says login failed, please check your details. If sorry, sign in or login, whichever. And I think that's great. Probably ready to test. I feel like I'm forgetting something, but what the heck, let's put a breakpoint there and go ahead to test this. All right, so once again, I'll go to /account/login, and first of all, let me try logging in with a user that doesn't exist. I'm going to hit login and hit my breakpoint, and you see it's in my breakpoint. What else? It is not invalid. I'll try to sign in, and if we check the results, I see succeeded is false, so I didn't succeed to log in. I'll come into my error. I'm adding an error to my model state, and let's see what happens. I now have an error saying login failed, please check your details. Now I want to use the actual details, which should work. So I'll put in my email, which I created an account with earlier, and then the password, if I remember correctly, was dev@12345. I'm going to try to log in now, and as you can see, I just hit my controller with the details, click. Okay, I mistakenly hit that button twice, that's why this is happening. Now results succeeded is true because these details are correct, and now when I go back to the browser, you see I did log in successfully and it brought me to the home page, and then it's telling me, hey, do I want to save this password, because it realized this was a successful login. Now what we want to do is we want to change this. So if I go in and I inspect my system, so if I come here and I say more tools, developer tools, I think memory application. If I come to check my cookies now, you see I have a lot of cookies here, one from ASP.NET Core identity. So this will tell you that okay, you're logged in and it has saved the cookie that represents you in this browser, but ideally we want a login button here. But we see that now a user can sign up and log in successfully. In the next video, we're going to look at adding a login button, a sign out button up here for when the user is logged in, so we can sign them out. Thank you guys for watching, and as usual, if you have questions, you know where to find me.